I am also recording.
Recording.
Okay. Well, that's right. But oh man, this is back-to-back cold opens.
Oh yeah, it's hard to do two cold opens back to back.
I don't know what to. I don't know what to cold open about.
Well, I mean, behind the curtains, we just did our Spider-Man review where we're both like, "Oh my god, I want to cry like a baby."
I feel like do you not feel like emotionally exhausted after
a little bit?
A little like I do too.
Hey, tell me the 7 things that make you want to bawl like a baby.
Yesterday, I was out front. I was out on the front porch with Amanda, and I was like, nobody in this house except me has seen Spider-Man, and I want to talk to somebody, and I haven't talked to Shawn yet, and I want to talk to somebody about it so bad, and I can't, and it's killing me. And she's like, well, you can talk to me about it. I was like, are you sure? Like, because there's like a lot of stuff in this movie and it's spoiler heavy. And she's like, no, it's fine. I don't mind. I was like, are you really sure? I was like, cause I'll do it. I'll go.
I'm about to spoil the shit for this for you, babe.
I was like, I will go soup to nuts on this movie. I will front to back this entire fucking movie for you right now. I will play by play it. Because I will just vomit this movie all over you. And she's like, go ahead. And I'm like, well, and I did for like a good solid 5 minutes.
And then at the end, she's like, well, who's Uncle Ben? You're like, this is why I should have waited for Shawn.
And then the guy did the thing, and then the other guy showed up and
Richard, wait, are you hard right now? A little bit.
I did. I like basically like just this entire movie. I was like, and then this thing happened, and I started talking about it, like, and I'm tearing up a little bit, just trying to talk to you about it. And I don't know how she looked at me like I grew another head, and the other head was talking to her about Spider-Man. So, and now I just spent like 90 minutes talking to you about it, and so now I'm like,
just like sex, I'm crying afterwards.
Oh, I feel good.
I'm interested about this draft because you're the one that brought this idea up. Like, hey, we should do a draft on things that make us cry. So I'm really curious what you're going to pull out.
I mean, I feel like this draft is going to be somewhat predictable because I feel like I've said most of the things that make me cry. I don't know. Like I feel like I'm kind of on Front Street about me getting emotional.
Yeah, it'll be interesting
about shit.
Yeah, so I look at mine. I don't think there's anything out of the ordinary.
We will see. We'll see right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, presenting the nerdiest competition ever created by the Language of Bromance team. In this corner, obsessed with Star Wars and anything with swords, Richard! And in this corner, obsessed with the Ninja Turtles and scared of anything from the ocean, Shawn! In association with the LOB Army. Tonight's competition is a Language of Bromance Draft.
What's up, everybody? I'm Richard.
And I'm...
And Shawn just gave away his first pick for the Language of Bromance.
I just read my list. Richard, what we are going to do today, I mean, I wouldn't really say this is a fomance as much as it's a emotional mance, because what we are drafting today, Richard,
it's an emo-mance.
Ooh, it's an emo man. So we are drafting
E-mance.
No, that's where like you go online and swipe left or right, I think.
Oh. So it is.
Yeah. That's actually a good point. Like if you put the things that people cry over, like that would probably like sync people up pretty well, I would think. Yeah.
That's true, because if somebody was like, "Hey, I cried when Batman said his mom's name was Martha too," then
you know what? My wife and I both would have swiped right on that because we both teared up in the movie theater when that happened. And then you get out and people are like, "That was fucking stupid." You're like, "What? Their moms were..." Yeah, I mean, it's kind of stupid, but I mean... But Richard, what we're doing today, we are drafting the things that make us teary-eyed. So if you don't know, and you should, our drafts are 7 rounds, NFL style, where we flip-flop picks back and forth. And back in the day, we flipped a penny to see who goes first, and I won. So odd drafts, I get the first pick. Even drafts, Richard gets the first pick. And since this is our 64th draft ever, Richard, our first draft of 2022... I think it's first draft 2022, maybe second. But we are drafting the things that make us teary-eyed, Richard. And I want to know, Richard, what gets you emotional?
Well, I mean, again, I think I said this at the top, but I feel like I've said most of these out loud at some point over the course of our I don't know how long. But for my number one, I'm going to go with a moment from Batman. Not really so much Batman, but more specifically from the Justice League. Not the movie, although that first Justice League movie did make me want to cry. It made me want to cry in the not so good way. It's from a cartoon called Justice League Unlimited. And there is a moment where Batman is talking to a member of the Royal Flush Gang named Ace. And Batman has the means to actually kill Ace. And they sit down on a swing together and they have this conversation. And Ace is like crazy uber powerful. So he's got this like Dark Phoenix complex going on. And the two of them just talk. And Ace is like, I'm gonna die because you're not, I know you're not gonna kill me, but this power is gonna basically like tear me apart. And he's like, yeah, I just came to talk to you and hope that you'd stop it on your own. And she's like, well, I don't want to die. And he's like, I know. And like they talk and they have this like sweet moment together. And at the end of it, Batman's like walking out with Ace like in his arms. And it hits me. And it's a fucking cartoon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's I guess that's the thing that kind of strikes me the most. Like it was a cartoon. It aired on the Cartoon Network. And like you can't throw those kind of like emotional curveballs on a Cartoon Network show because my brain doesn't know how to handle it. And so I feel like I'm just going to be very brief with these because I can't go into much more detail without like reliving it in my brain. So for my first pick, I'm going to go with Batman and the death of Ace.
Yeah, I've never seen the full thing, but you've shown me that scene and just being on that swing set. And it's just kind of like that innocence thing. And like, knowing that it's your time. Like death's always one of those things that I struggle with, which I think everybody struggles with. But, you see something like that, it just kind of personifies that. It's like, you're like, well, she's just a kid. But then you're like, well, is anybody really ever like ready?
Yeah. And she looks at him and she's like, will you stay with me? And he's like, well, yeah. Oh,
yeah. That's a tough one. Well, I'm
going to be emotionally exhausted by the end of this. I already feel it coming.
Yeah. Because my first pick, Richard, there's like, like kind of, it ties in a little bit to that, but, we're both getting older and, we're both fathers and, my dad's had some bouts with stuff this past year, which, really kind of makes, because I mean, like when you're growing up, it's kind of one of those things where you're like, oh my gosh, well, my dad's going to be around forever, right? Because he's been around my whole life. And then things come up and you're like, well, shit. Well, and I know you've dealt with this in a more real way than I have up to this point. And I've honestly struggled with this probably for the last 10 years, maybe. Like anytime I hear a country song, and that's what my first pick is, country music songs about like dads. Because most of them are kind of like, oh my God, my dad's the greatest and he's not here anymore. Or, here's all the things that, my dad's done. And like I've feared the day of my dad's funeral, like I said, probably for like 10 years, and he's still around right now. He did have a bout with some stuff, but, I'll be home and I've got a Spotify playlist called just like sometimes you want country music. And I'll play it, and like 25% of the songs are like, about, the person's dad or being a dad.
Yeah.
And you hear that and you're like driving home and you're just bawling your eyes out. And like, I got to get it cleared before I get home. I'm just going to call dad. I need to talk to him. And then you listen to a song about like the ones where you can't talk to your dad anymore. And you're like, oh God, like I fear for that day more than anything, I think.
Yeah.
Man, why did we do this draft, actually? But, there's a Conway Twitty song called That's My Job that really gets to me. There's a new one. Oh, shit, I can't remember what his name. Oh, Zach Brown Band. I know you like Zach Brown Band.
I do like Zach Brown Band.
That one gets me all the time. The newest one, what's his name? Luke Combs. I don't know if you've listened to him much.
I haven't.
He's got one called, what's it called? Let me see if I can find it real quick. Cause it's a good song. If you want to just like cry, like listen, cause it's basically kind of like an updated version of, Conway Twitty's That's My Job.
Okay.
Why isn't it one of his top songs? I would assume to be one of his top songs.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Conway Twitty.
Oh, Even Though I'm Leaving. That's the song. Like I'll listen to it and I love it. Like I can only sing like the first two verses of it because when it goes into the third one, I'm like, nope, I'm done. I'm crying. But yeah, my first round pick is country music songs about dads.
Yeah, I think I know how you feel. Like I'm sitting here going like, why did we do this? Why was this my idea? Why do you listen to my ideas?
I'm curious why, like, of the two of us to come up with like, hey, we should talk about our feelings and try to cry. It was you that brought this up. And I was like, that's a great idea.
Well, I guess like in my head, I was like, oh, we'll keep it to like pop culture-y stuff. And then you're fucking, oh. All right. Here we go. All right. Pick number 2. Shawn. So I've said many times that like there were Pixar, like Pixar movies are just like the death of me. Almost any Pixar movie, like there's a bunch of moments. The one Pixar moment for me, I think that stands out more than any other moment is in the Pixar movie Inside Out.
I haven't gotten to that part in that movie yet, Richard. Because we tried to watch it with some kids, and kids obviously like they watch it and like this is okay, but it's kind of dumb. And as a parent, you're watching it like, oh my God, like, will you just sit down and let me have this emotional breakdown right now?
So the moment for me has to be the fading away of Bing Bong. And I think that the reason that it gets to me as much as it does is it's not because like it's a character that passes away in a movie, but it's what it symbolizes. And the thing that it symbolizes is the thing that like every single kid that, you know, is transitioning into that like preteen, young adult kind of thing is like is so Bing Bong is like, the imaginary friend, and like they hang out and like they spend like their childhood together, and like it's the little girl and it's Bing Bong, but then Bing Bong ends up in the place in her brain where things just get lost and fade away. And so when Bing Bong fades away, it's representing like the death of childlike imagination.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that again, everybody goes through it. Like everybody does it, but I don't think like a lot of people, like, you never like have the self-realization like, oh my God, that happened in my brain. And then you see it happen, then it happens on the screen, and you're like, oh my God, that happened to me. And then you're like frantically going like, did I have an imaginary friend? What was their name? What did they do? Like you're sitting, like you're watching it, and then you realize that it already happened for you.
Yeah. Well, I kind of think it from the other perspective too. Like, as a parent, your kid getting to the point where they're kind of done with that. Like,
yeah.
Like my son, like we just did Polar Express, right? And seeing like, it's still magic to him. Like,
yeah.
Seeing Santa, doing Elf on a Shelf. And like, he's still got all this like very like childhood innocence. And, like at some point it's not going to, like, my dad doesn't have that. My mom doesn't have that with me now. Right. Like I don't go home and like, oh my God, I bet he believes in Santa. And so like,
let's get on the Polar Express.
Like they see me as, an adult now. And like, I'm definitely kind of like, I'm still a big part of their life, but I'm not like a daily thing in their life. And, like those moments, like, sitting on that train with, my son, like I was just staring at him trying to soak in all this because, I think I have the benefit of, like with you, like your kids are older. So you've talked about all this stuff for years.
Yeah.
And I've got all these other people in my life who's, had kids when I was a little bit younger. And all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, our kids, driving now and they're working. And I don't know if that's helped me kind of like, and I've always been kind of like how many years of whatever do I have? And you start doing the math and it's like, we might have 3 more Christmases like this. And it's going to be here and gone before you know it.
Yep.
And it's, like in that moment too, it's like, it's a kid, becoming a teenager. And so, like we talk like the time I have to do kind of like the me stuff is a little bit limited. And I'm like, a part of me is like, it'd be kind of nice once, the kiddo can kind of do his own thing and I can kind of do mine. We can kind of interact.
Sure.
But then it's like, well, shit, I may see him less at that point.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I see that is just kind of like the slowly that like, that's the first big stepping stone of like, oh, you don't need me anymore.
Yeah. And
I'm not excited for that at all. So to tie to that, so like we're at my grandpa's for Christmas. And my I guess would be my second cousin. It's my cousin's kid. And Jacoby were playing. They're about the same age. And like my mom looked at me and she's like, one day you're really going to miss this. And like in my head, I'm like, Mom, I already miss it. Like, I know it's not forever.
Don't
like,
know what you got till it's
gone. Baby, isn't that from that album? That like, there's like a commercial. I remember it's that, and then it's like the baby, when you touch me like that. Like it was a really weird mixtape that you bought as a CD.
It was one of those like late night infomercial CDs that you'd find. Yeah.
I remember at Krieger's we'd always mimic that. but yeah, I didn't want to steal too much of yours. Yeah, but the Inside Out kind of the Bing Bong is definitely a heart tear jerking thing. You know what's going to happen after this? Both you and I are going to go and like hug our kids and our wife. Why is Dad crying? I just love you guys so much.
Sit down. I'll drink your stupid eggnog.
Did you have anything else for your second pick?
No, that was all I had. Okay. Like I said, like I feel like I need to keep these brief because I feel like as the further we go down this list, the more I'm gonna go down the rabbit hole. You know what I mean?
Like picks 5 through like 7. And then
Exactly.
My second round pick, Richard, it was from Infinity Wars. And it was the one, like there was a couple of moments that definitely like towards the end that were a little tear jerky, but this was again the one. It's you put yourself in, like I feel like in shows and stuff, I can kind of put myself in like a bucket. Like in this scenario, Richard, I would have been probably the Stark. I would have been Tony Stark.
Okay,
and then Spider-Man would have been like my son or like somebody that looks up to me or somebody that I'm helping out. And it's the part where you're seeing everybody blip out. And you see Spider-Man grip his stomach and just go and say, Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good. And fall into his arms and blip out.
Because you know it's coming.
Yeah. And that's like in that moment, like if you're him, you're like, that's like the helpless feeling of like, I can't help this. I can't do anything about this.
Which is exactly what he'd been afraid of this entire time.
And as like, a father or a brother or, any kind of leadership type position, like that's the thing you fear the most is like failing in a sense that you can't help them. And that was one that like when that happened, I was just like, oh, nope. Yep. I'm crying. Yep. This is happening, everybody. But yeah,
here it comes.
Yeah. But my
get ready, guys.
My second round pick's going to be the Mr. Stark. I don't feel so good.
What should I go with for number 3? I'll keep it. I'll keep it in Marvel because there were newer ones aside. It's funny. Like I can name off like 3 moments in the last Spider-Man movie. We just talked about it.
Go check out episode 394. I think it'll be.
Yeah. So for my pick 3, 4, and 5, I'm gonna just go listen to the last episode. No, for this one, I'm actually going with a different movie, a movie that you actually probably wouldn't expect, and that is Thor Ragnarok.
Okay.
So then towards the very beginning of Thor Ragnarok, it starts out with Thor and Loki, and they buddy cop together because they're looking for Odin. And they meet up with Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange leads them to Odin. And there is a scene where Thor and Loki both find and talk to Odin for the very last time. And they walk up to him and they're like, at this point, he thinks that Odin's under like a spell that Loki put on him. And so Thor walks up and he's like, Father, it's us. And then Loki kind of like slowly walks up and he has that look on his face like, sorry, Dad. But he doesn't even acknowledge it. He's just like, oh, it's my sons. And he says, your mother, she calls me. Do you hear it? And then Loki actually puts his head up like he's listening for it. And then he's like, come and sit down with me. I don't have much time. And they sit and they talk, and he kind of reveals the big bad of that movie is his firstborn, and whatever. And Thor's like, well, we can stop her together. And this is the one that this is the moment for me is Thor's like, well, it's fine. We can stop her. We can stop her together. And Odin's like, no. I'm on a different path now. I love you, my sons. And then they're sitting out on this fjord, and he's like, look out there. Isn't that beautiful? Oh, crushes me. And then he fades away into little bits of light.
Yeah, that's so how many moments in time have people had to have experienced that? Because maybe it wasn't visibly a parent saying one more last hurrah or one more last moment.
I think it was just kind of I think for me it was just the fact that he he knows that it's coming, and so he's just I'm on a different path now.
Yeah. Well, I think like at the end of a lot of people's life, because like him, like it's like, well, this could end the world. This could be the end of all we know. But for him at that point, it's like, I'm done. At least I'm with the ones that I love.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of like, I don't know if they meant to do this, but it's kind of a big, to me, it seems like a metaphor of, like in the end, it doesn't matter except for the ones that you're with. Like there's always going to be things that happen or come up, but being with the ones you love is a big thing. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. Yep. End of the day, that's what's important.
Well, I think what Marvel does really well, because that's like that very much is a humanized like moment that lots of people have had.
Well, I think it's just like the whole like relation, like what Marvel does well is just, like superpowers aside, like there's still, relationships, and there's still, they still have that dynamic, fathers and sons and brothers and, whatever.
Family and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I like that. Yeah, I actually kind of blocked that one out because I feel like that's a scene I skip a lot, because I feel like if you sit and watch that, like, yeah, it's like you miss the next 15 minutes because you're just like teared up, and it's a very emotionally draining moment.
Yeah.
And very relatable that you don't really get much in like superhero movies.
I feel myself getting like lower in my chair, like as we talk. I'm like, whoa, like I'm sinking.
Well, I know a lot of these moments are kind of like, at least for me, they're definitely like, oh, well, these are just pop culture moments. But I think a lot of them have like meanings behind that are relatable.
Yes.
So it's not just like, oh, well, it's Odin's death. It's like, well, it reminds me of this thing and this thing. And then it makes me think about, well, what happens when I'm at that point and I'm Odin? Because if you think about like, how would you want to go? Like, I would hope I go with like my loved ones around me, for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, ideally. Right.
Yeah. Oof. Well, since we're kind of on the death trail, my third round pick, Richard, this is a show that I spent 14 years watching. Was hit or miss, but I feel like the last episode just kind of hammered it, like knocked it out of the ballpark. And I don't know I think you've watched this episode, but it's the Supernatural Heaven montage. So it's where Dean has passed away and he's in heaven.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I have. Yeah. Keep going.
And he's just riding around, and it's kind of that thing of like, to me, this is like my ideal of what heaven would be. For Dean, it's like instantaneous, like it's not like any time has passed. But for Sam, like you see like his life, he becomes a dad, keeps hunting, then you see him all the way to his death. And then him and his brother meet in heaven, and they're together. And there's just like a calming of it, because like, in one instance, Sam's son is on Earth, like crying over his lost son. And Sam was even crying over Dean. Like that was, somebody he's no longer with. But in the end, they're together, and there's, I think in our other draft where we did for the New Year's, like I want to become more spiritual. And so like, to me, that's kind of what I feel like the afterlife would be. Like it's something where there's just a sense of,
it's just, you just go and like hang out.
Yeah. And it's a sense of calm. Like there's no rush for anything. And like all the great joys you feel in life are there. And, like you and I, like in this world, when we're doing podcasts, it's not over a computer. We're face to face because we have infinite time to enjoy like all the things that are great in life. And even in a bigger scale, obviously. But, like even with that, it's just like something that's gone is not truly gone. It's there's still a way. There's still at some point the comfort and the connection that'll still exist. And whatever, some people might be like, well, you just become dirt and you die and that's it. And like, that's a whole other draft. Like, let's do existential crisis draft where we talk about how you're insignificant in the universe. That's for a different time. But like that, I like to think, when that time comes for me, like the family members that I've loved and lost will be there waiting for me kind of thing. And, I hope the one person that I'm sure I would love to like would crack a good joke would be my grandpa on my mom's side, because he'd probably like elbow me and be like, dude, you did that a lot. Like a lot.
Damn, boy.
He was the one that had the subscription for like 20 years to Playboy. So, but
I get it, but jeez.
But my third round pick is the Supernatural Heaven montage.
All right. You know what? I just realized something. I realized why I picked this idea. Because you know what? You know what, Shawn? This isn't just going to be a bunch of sad bastard moments. Because there are things that make us cry that aren't necessarily sad. There are things that make us cry that make us super, super happy.
Tears of joy are amazing things.
So for my fourth round pick, since we've had a bunch of sad bastard moments from you and I'm gonna brighten things up. I'm gonna lift things up, okay? And I'm gonna go fairly recently, within the last year. Shawn, we've talked to a great extent about 2020. Now, 2020 wasn't fantastic. 2020 was not a banner year for many. However, my favorite moment of 2020, the moment that made me so happy that I had no other reaction other than to have the tears run, was the season 2 finale of Mandalorian and the return of Luke Skywalker.
Yes. Yeah. Brings you back to childhood.
Like, it all came back. And like you've never seen him like that, you know? Like, you got little glimpses of it in Return of the Jedi, but you're like, I wish they would have made a movie where Luke was like being a badass and fucking things up. Like, that would be rad, but it'll never happen. But it did happen, Shawn. Happened at the end of Mandalorian, and nobody knew it was coming, and I was so happy that I didn't know what to do. Like, my brain literally shorted out in that instance.
Yeah,
and I had no other reaction to give other than to just be unbearably happy.
Yeah, you talk about, like, nowadays, like, things are hard to not get spoiled on. And that was one too. Like, you texted me, this is probably about this time last year, you texted me and said, oh my God, stay away from the internet, watch the end of Mandalorian. And I did. And I'm not as huge of a Star Wars fan as you, just because, I got introduced to it pretty late, so I was already kind of an adult. But, like, even for me, it was kind of like this is pretty darn cool, especially for somebody like Richard who loves this stuff.
Oh my God. I was with my two oldest kids, and it started, like, the ship shows up, and my son's like, holy shit, it's Luke Skywalker. And I was like, no, it's not. Like, shut up. Like, get that name out of your mouth. Like, that's not true.
You know what? Go to your room.
Yeah, I was like, what are you talking about? Like, that's nonsense. You were speaking nonsense. And then I see a robe on a security camera, and I'm like, no, they're not. That's somebody else. There's no way. And then I see a green lightsaber and a gloved hand holding it. And I'm like, oh my God. Oh, they're actually
get out of your room and come watch this.
They're actually doing this. This is happening. I don't know what to do with my hands.
How many times have you watched that?
I let out squeals and squeeze.
How many times have you watched that scene?
Oh my God, so many times. And you know what? And this is why I said, you know what, we should do a draft of this, because every now and again, when I because sometimes you kind of like want to feel that, like, emotion,
100%.
You know, like sometimes you want to feel like how that, you know, like, I wish I could like feel how that felt again, you know, like feel like how it was seeing it for the first time. And so sometimes, Shawn, I go onto YouTube and I watch like a compilation of reactions to that moment.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's people that do like, reaction shows or whatever. And there's compilations where they do like mashups of all these different reaction shows, but they're all watching like the same moment.
Uh-huh.
And it just like clips between them. And like you see the looks in their faces and the things that they're saying, and you're just like, and it does help. It comes back. Like that whole feeling like wells back up again. There's very few things that does that happens for me, and that is 100% one of them.
I like that. Yeah, it makes sense. Those compilations are cool, like seeing people's true first reactions to things.
Yes.
I love those. Well, for my fourth round pick, Richard, like when you brought this up, there was two things that popped in my head. One was the country music songs, and the second was this. So there are times where, like, especially in sports, but mostly in Major League Baseball, where there's a guy, he's coming up, it's his very first game of the season or his very first career game, and they always pan over to their dad and mom in the stands. And I love when you see the reactions of like the kids who are in there, and it's their first Major League game, and they like do something extremely like extraordinary. Like, there's one guy who I think it was on Mother's Day, and his mom had passed away like a year or two ago, or like his mom was battling cancer or something like that, and he pitched like an extremely great game. Or, a guy hits a home run, and, they pan to the mom and dad, and seeing the joy on their face and the success for their like kid is just like tear jerking for me. Cause like you think about all the work that they did, and just like seeing how proud they are of their kid to do something like that. And it's not something that like, I mean, I'm sure my parents have been proud of me for some things, like obviously, but like something like that that's so public and so on display, like it's tough to fake that. And a lot of it's not like these people who've done like, it's not like they're actors or things like that. It's just a raw enjoyment of like, I remember watching my kid play t-ball, and now they've made it to this stage of this career path. And they are, like, just the well of emotions that you see with that. And usually a lot of times too, like they'll pan to it, like the mom and dad are coming down, and it's a lot of times you see a lot of the dads, because, baseball is my sport, and that's very much a dad son type of thing, right? Like you think of Field of Dreams, it's the connection of the dad and the son. And a lot of times too, in our environment, like dads and sons don't show each other a lot of emotion. I think that's starting to, go away, but like you don't see it a lot.
I would agree.
But when you see it on a baseball field, you see like some big burly dad just giving his son a big hug, like out in the public, just brings me to tears. It kind of takes me back to like my grandpa, like was a big like cheek kisser. Like he'd give you a hug and kiss you on the cheek. And I remember the one time at like some basketball game, he's like, well, I don't want to kiss you on the cheek in front of everybody. But maybe if I made it to the pros, he would have. But that's my thing, is just like, Major League Baseball and, getting to see the kids get there and stuff like that, and the family reaction.
Yeah. That's
like a nice tears. Like, it's just, I mean, it's a lot of work.
It's like,
but
even though like you're not, it's one of those things that like even though you're not personally invested, it's like, even from the outside looking in, you see like it's still like you can be invested in it while not being personally connected to it. It's one of those kind of things, I guess. Okay, well, I gotta go back to sad moment. Sorry. I felt like we brightened it up in the middle.
Yeah, a little bit.
We're at pick number 5.
Number
correct?
5. Yep.
Number 5. All right. So for number 5, I will actually go to one of the more redeeming moments in Rise of Skywalker, and that is the appearance of Han Solo talking to Ben Solo at that point. Threw his lightsaber away.
Yeah.
And then there he is. There's Dad. There's dear old Dad. And the thing that like totally like fucking sent me over the edge was like they reenact the conversation from Force Awakens, which totally fine. I can handle that. But then like Ben's getting ready to say, I love you. And he says, Dad. And Han just stops and he's like, I know.
Yeah.
Nope.
Would you say sad? I mean, there is, a sense of sadness there, but it's still definitely kind of more of a sadness in terms of like, there's love there, right?
Right.
And I think
exactly. I think that's the thing is like, it's just like, you don't have to say it. It's okay. Like, we get it.
Well, even in that,
like, I mean, if you're looking at it from a very emotionless point of view, it's like, yeah, he's saying like, it's okay. Like, you don't have to say it. Like, I know.
Yeah. I think it's got multiple layers because there's that. There's the, that's Han Solo's thing. It's like, he's going to say, I love you. And he's like, I know. So you got some Han Solo, feels there. Like you said, I mean, a lot of these are dad son kind of things. So it's kind of the dad son. It's like, well, men don't say they love each other. And, it's like, is there a little bit of that kind of there too? It's like, you don't have to say it.
A little bit, but I don't think it's like I know, like, hey, like, fucking get your shit together.
No,
Like,
yeah.
I don't think it's not that. It's more just like like, it's cool. Like, fucking don't be so hard on yourself.
Yeah.
Relax a little bit, kid. You're running around with a red lightsaber and you're stabbing people in the face. Like, calm the fuck down. Have a sandwich.
Yeah. You're not you when you don't eat a Snickers. Yeah, I remember, like, of the moments in that movie, that was the one that kind of stood out. And it kind of sucks because, like, that could have been, like, a big moment that people talk about. But because the rest of the movie kind of was a little subpar, that moment, I think, gets missed.
Yep.
Well, for my 5th round pick, Richard, I'm going to keep us on this mopey trail. And my family used to go to Christmas movies every year. So we would go back to my mom and dad's, we'd have Christmas, we'd eat dinner, open presents, and then Christmas night we'd go to a movie. And then once my sister had a kid and I had a kid, that kind of slowed down just because it's like, well, how do you take a baby to a movie at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night?
Yeah, no joke.
So I'm not, and then obviously 2020 and stuff slowed it down even more. So we'll have to kind of see. But one year, Richard, we went to see a movie and we're like, oh my gosh, this looks like the best, Christmas movie we could ever want to go to. And people were walking out of the theater, Richard, bawling their eyes out. And we asked somebody we know when they're coming out, we're like, hey, oh my God, Merry Christmas. And, they're like red puffy eyes, wiping away tears, like, oh my God, like Merry Christmas. And like, are you okay? Like, what movie did you just go see? And they said, the movie that we were going to go see, Richard. And that was the movie Marley and Me.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
That's a movie that kicks you in the gut so hard. Like, you watch it and you're enjoying it and you're like, oh my gosh, like, oh yeah, crazy dog. Like, I have one of those. Like, he's a knucklehead. Like, he chews up stuff. And then, like, at the end of it, they're like, oh yeah, guess what? This dog is dying. And like, because, my God, Richard, this movie popped up on TV and we turned it in at the part like right where all that was happening. I was like, no, guys, I'm sorry. I'm changing the channel because I don't want to bawl my eyes out right now watching this dog pass away.
Right.
Because when I saw it, I don't remember how much you remember this movie, Richard, but basically you see, the couple get together, they get a dog, and you see their family basically grow up with this dog, right? Like the kids. And it's just like anything in life. Like, I think you kind of start taking stuff for granted. And like, there's a part at the end where the dog has trouble getting up the steps. And what's his name that's in it? He's a Mandalorian.
Oh,
Wilson.
I can't think.
Wilson something.
Yeah.
Owen Wilson. There it is.
Oh, yes.
So he's in it. And so like, you see the dog having trouble getting up steps. He's like, oh, I don't remember if it was a boy or girl. I think it's a boy since it's Marley, but he's like, oh, getting a little old, aren't you, buddy? And again, just like if everything in life, you're like, well, I've had this dog for, a decade. Like, it's going to be around forever, right? And, it doesn't. And they take you into the goddamn vet while they're putting it down. All of it.
The whole thing.
And I know you've probably had to deal with this. I had to deal with this twice in the last year, having a pet that you've had forever and you have to, put it down because of health issues.
Yeah.
And, and so they have to deal with that. And the part that kills me, because I felt like I put myself in this kid's shoes when I saw it. So it was like the oldest kid. And so they're putting him in there and they're like, hey, do you kids have anything you want to say? And the oldest boy's like, oh, he knows. God. Of course, the dog one's going to make me cry.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, I can't watch that movie. Like if it's on, I'm like, no. I mean, no. Can't do it.
Dad, I brought this movie. For us to watch. No. Picking the TV up. No.
Oh, wait, this was Barley and me.
This was my TV. Damn it.
But yeah. And then you walk out and you're like, oh, that's why everybody was bawling. Because the movie ends that way. Like, there's no, like, they get a new dog or, like, there's no, like, buffer to make you feel better. It's just, like, dead dog buried.
It's not, there's no bittersweet to it. It's all just bitter.
Yeah. But, yeah, my 5th round pick, Marley and Me.
Nice. All right. We're at number 6. I feel like you and I are just like we're kind of crashing through these now. Just like, okay, let's power through.
Like I said, we're gonna get to picks 4 and 5. Like, and then they did the thing.
I'll tell you what. Right now for number 7, because I had number 7 in my head. Like, I feel like I'm just gonna say number 7, and then that's just good, and then we can move on to your number 7. Like I'll just say number 7.
Well, we're on 6. We've got 2 more.
I know, okay. We're on 6. I'm just saying.
You're like, no, we got to skip 6, or I'm gonna ball.
When I made my list, I'll make that 7. Number 6. I'm going to go, you know what? It gets me every single time, but it still makes me feel good, is Return of the Jedi. There is a moment in Return of the Jedi where the Emperor, it's another Star Wars moment, obviously. Emperor is shocking Luke with lightning, shooting lightning at Luke. And Darth Vader is looking at Luke. And he's looking at Luke, and then he looks at the Emperor, and he looks at Luke, and then he looks at the Emperor, and then he's like, you know what? Fuck it. And he picks the Emperor up, lifts him up over his head, and he's getting all shocked with lightning and walks over to like a big empty chasm and tosses that body in, throws him right in.
Yep. Oh, dad mode kicks in.
The music like swells up when he does it. Now, okay, so in the special edition, I don't know why he did this, but in the special edition, during that moment, he adds in Vader saying no. Like at first he says it kind of quietly to himself, and then he says it again right before, louder when he picks the Emperor. Yeah. Like, you don't need that. I don't feel like you need that. You could. I feel like the original had nothing. He says nothing.
In the original, though, does Luke still say dad or something like that? Or father? Okay.
Yes. But in the original, like, Vader just does it. And I feel, I don't know, like, in my head, I feel like that carries more emotionally.
Yeah, I agree.
That's just me.
And we're kind of ruined by the no and, like, the end of the Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. Now I can't watch it because, like, I hear that and then it pulls me out of it. And I'm like, I can't. But if anybody ever gets their hands on the Laserdisc version or the original version, like, yeah, go get that.
Oh man, my 6th round pick stuff. I got my 7th round too. My 6th is kind of tough because I'm going through a couple different things.
Well, like I said, like number 7's gonna be quick. So I'll go have 7 ready.
I'll go with my 6th will be kind of quick because I've talked about it a bunch. I think I have to put it on here, but it's the Firefly Out of Gas episode.
Yes, yeah.
I've talked about that plenty, but it just kind of ties around to like if I have to really narrow it down, it's kind of, somebody trying to stay behind their hard shell but deep down we all like want companionship and love, and to have, you know, some fulfillment of like a team, even if like in that one, like he's willing to die with his ship, but it's his crew that comes back. And, you know, I think it's just kind of like when I think about like my crew, like I don't feel like I've got like a ton of people except like you and, you know, like my family and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really kind of what that episode shows is like, well, I don't really have a crew. I'm just here by myself.
I'd show back up.
Exactly. Yeah.
I wouldn't Jane Cobb you.
Yeah. Zoe's like, you turn these shits around and go back once she came to. but yeah, I mean, it's just like everybody I think needs and wants a crew. And I think in that one you see like, even though he's like, no, I'm a rogue by myself, dude. And it's like, no, man, like you've got people that love you and you have your crew. So kind of sweet. But yeah, my 6th round, I'm going to go Firefly out of gas.
Nice. I guess, you know, I should probably rewatch that because I guess I watched it, but I didn't really like take in the full like emotional weight of it.
Yeah, I mean the part that gets me is like when he's talking to what's her name, Inara, and she's like, "You don't have to die alone," and he's like, "You know, we all die alone," and it's like, oh man, it's kind of true. But then at the end, like when he's out and he comes back, they're all there. And then he's kind of like dozing back off from the drugs, and he comes back too, and he's like, "You guys are all going to be here when I get back, right?" I'm like, "Oh yeah." It's like, yeah.
All right, Shawn. Number 7. I have done this twice in the last 4 years. No, 3 years. Wait, hang on. This is 2021. Yeah, I've done this twice in the last however many years. Shawn, my number 7 pick is listening to our Father's Day episode.
Oh, yeah.
That's my number 7.
Yeah, I don't know how much you want to talk about it, but I know that's one that like it just popped up in our heads like, oh my God, like we totally should do a Father's Day episode.
Yep. Yeah.
And like did it, you know, I thought you and your dad's conversation was great. Didn't even think much of it. And then was it like a year later almost or just short of a year?
Not even.
Yeah.
Like 7 months, 8 months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And yeah.
And so whenever we talk to another podcaster, I'm always like, you know what you should do? You should definitely do a Father's Day episode or do an episode like record with your dad.
Yeah. Well, and I know like a year after that or maybe 2 years, we did it with our moms.
Yeah.
And I know like, I think we skipped the next year because I don't know. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I feel like you kind of had some reservations about it. Like almost like a jinxie kind of feel.
a little.
Which I totally get. But I'm glad we got our moms on too.
Yeah, I do too. And honestly, like I felt like that was like that kind of pushed me to want to do a Mother's Day one, and also like I felt like I took that one a lot. I took that one a bit more seriously, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Totally.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know what else. How else I can go into it. I noticed a running theme with most of my lists, and so I felt like it should culminate in number 7 because number 7 I feel like informs a lot of my list.
Oh yeah, I think it all kind of fits together with that. Yeah, I like whenever people ask me about like, you know, like what are you most proud about or like what's something that you're happy about with your podcast, and I always like to mention is like I'm really glad we got our dads on. Yeah. Because I mean it was short when that happened. I don't remember when it was, but I know you mentioned like I at least have that episode.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy because it's crazy how much you like eventually like forget what like somebody sounds like. Yeah. And then you hear it and then you're like, oh my God. It's almost it's strange. I'll say that.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people who keep voicemails from people that are no longer here. Yeah. Re-listen to like 2-second intervals or maybe 30-second intervals.
Yeah.
But I mean, you've got a solid 25, 30 minutes.
So that way when I'm gone, then my family can hear, 400 hours of dick and fart jokes.
Yeah, that's what you joke about that, but like my cousin and I before 2020, we'd go to concerts and stuff all the time and hang out, and like it was pretty much like a every other or every 3 months kind of thing, and with everything kind of shut down, we didn't see each other, and he's like, "Yeah, I've been going back and listening to your podcast cuz I kind of miss the sound of your voice."
Aww.
Yeah. So that's what, it's kind of not really been the goal of this, but definitely something I thought about. I was like, well, at least, our kids will have this archive of us talking, and, they may just get tired of us, but at least they'll have us for,
whatever.
Forever.
That's on them.
Exactly. Well, my 7th round pick, Richard, it's something that, as my son's starting to get a little bit older, I'm getting to see more and more of these things, but, I feel like I kind of see it in my dad's eyes a little bit, but in my mom's eyes, but it's seeing my kids succeed.
Yeah.
So like recently I went back and watched his very first Christmas concert he did, like when he was 3.
Oh, okay.
And like, you think like, oh my gosh, like when you're a kid or like a teenager, like these are stupid. Like, why is mom recording this? And I was sitting there with my phone recording it, like nearly bawling my eyes out, watching him sing like 6 words to the song because that's the only 6 he knew.
Right.
This is kind of success, I guess, a little bit at a young age. But when we were going there, like he's kind of nervous around big crowds. And so I gave him a rock out of one of the rocks things. And I said, hey, if you get nervous, just, grab this rock.
Yeah.
And I have it on video where he's singing and he's kind of not real shy. He's kind of getting into it, but you see him reach into his pocket. And he's like, you see his face kind of light up, and he pulls the rock out, and then he looks in the crowd for me and just goes, "Daddy." But he's doing some other stuff and seeing when he gets successful, and like with school, like he's learning so much more now. Like when he reads a word they didn't know, like it really kind of bring a tear to my eye just seeing kind of where he's at, where he's going, and what he can do. So, yeah. So my 7th round is seeing my kids' success.
That's nice.
Mm. Well, what'd you have for some and buts?
You know what? I don't want to get into the and buts because I feel like they're like it's a bunch of it's a lot more sad bastard stuff. What'd you have?
Final issue of the Walking Dead comic.
Okay.
It ended much better than however the show's going, but essentially, it kind of falls into, I guess, my 7 a little bit, except in a comic version. But you see, Carl like grow up and be kind of successful in the zombie apocalypse, and it's Rick that kind of sacrifices himself for him. I don't know if you've ever saw the movie or if you've read the book or not, but it's Lone Survivor. It's about the SEAL team that was in Afghanistan, I believe. I
think I did. Maybe.
Yeah, the movie was pretty emotional, but the book itself, like there was a spot where it kind of goes more into like why it makes me cry. It's just like a brotherhood, like a back against the wall and like doing everything like in a legit firefight kind of scenario. And one of the guys had to go out on this rock, essentially knowing he was going to get shot and killed just to try to get a radio out. And like that scene and that moment really kind of got me. The Jersey Girl ending. Everybody shits on Jersey Girl, but the scene where Ben Affleck's sitting with his dad and is talking about like basically like, we're going to have to stay with you because I didn't get the job, but I'm sorry, I know you don't want us to cramp your style. Yeah. And he replies back, he's like, well, not as much as I want to die alone.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, you know what? I'll give you one and then we'll end this. That would be the death of Artax in Neverending Story. That fucking horse.
Yeah.
That fucking horse
one.
sinks in the swamp.
Well, I'll one up you.
It crushed 6-year-old me. Like crushed.
Yeah. Well, I'll one up you. Toy Story 3 when Andy gives up the toys.
I open face cried in the theater watching that movie, and I'm like trying to hide it from my kids. It was terrible.
So
terrible.
The thing that made me cry more than that was somebody put Stan Lee's face on a box of Avengers.
Why would somebody do that?
And the person he was giving it to was Kevin Feige.
Oh, stop!
And it was
like, why would they do that?
It was like right after he passed away too, and you're like, "Oh, they're his toys."
That's terrible.
Well, I I think we did all right. Let me go through these and recap what we did. Just to make sure
don't do that.
Richard's first round pick had Batman and Justice League, Batman and Ace. Second round pick, Fading Away of Bing Bong. Third round pick, Odin's Death. Fourth round pick, the season 2 finale, Mandalorian. Fifth round pick, Rise of Skywalker, the appearance of Han Solo. Sixth round pick, the Emperor, shocking Luke, and then Darth Vader saves his son. And seventh round, money shot pick, listening to our Father's Day episode.
40% of my list involves fathers and sons.
Mine's pretty close to that too, yeah. So my first round pick is country music songs about dads. Second round pick, Mr. Stark, I Don't Feel So Good. Third round pick, Supernatural Heaven Montage. Fourth round pick, MLB games with sons and moms and dads. Fifth round pick, Marley and Me. Sixth round pick, Firefly Out of Gas. And then seventh round pick, Seeing Kids Success.
Yeah, like 30 to 40% of yours.
I wonder,
what's that say about us?
I was just going to ask, if we did this draft like 10 years ago, would it be as much or not? Again, a lot of people say you get into your 30s and 40s and you kind of think of life a little different. And
I feel like I could say my list would probably be completely different.
Oh, mine totally would.
Yeah.
But because I think when you're in your 20s, I think it's funny because a lot of people are like, oh, you think you're going to live forever. I think in your 20s, you legitimately kind of feel like you do because, 50 seems so far away and 60 seems so far away. And then you eat up 10 years of your life and you're like, shit, I'm 36. I'm
right.
14 years away from 50 and late 50s, early 60s when you used to see stuff come through and be like, oh, this person died. They were 65. You're like, oh my God, that's so old. And you're like, wait, I'm already halfway there. Yeah, it makes you think a little bit, but
I don't like it.
Yeah. But I think we did good on this draft. I'm glad it was a very good choice. So I want to know some Richard's closing thoughts on our draft that makes us weep.
You know what? I thought it was good. It was a good idea in my head when I came up with it because I was trying to because I was like, oh, I'll come up with a bunch of happy moments, like happy cry moments. But you know what? Didn't happen. And I think it just goes to where my headspace is at. So I guess you know what the closing thought should be: happiness and or sadness is all relative. And don't worry about what makes you cry. Worry about why they make you cry.
Yeah.
There you go.
I like it.
Whew.
All right. Well, let me do a little bit of housekeeping. Visit our website, we're languageofbromance.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at languageofbro. Email us at bros@languageofbromance.com. I feel like I should put in some soppy, quiet, sad music. We like to thank our 2 patrons that never make us cry, Wendy and Aaron.
No, they never do. If they do, it's a happy cry.
Exactly. All right. Well, is there anything else before I close her out?
No, I'm good.
Yeah. Well, Richard, I just want to tell you that Hey,
I know.
All right. Well, that's all the bros we have for this show. I'm Shawn.
And I'm Richard.
And remember, don't B-O-Y. B-O-Y.
Why not? Why not let those things make you cry?
Yeah, it's good. It's good to feel.
I'm gonna end this call and then go ugly cry right now.
All right. Get tissues.